Let's get to our continuing investigation. The U.S. Department of Energy has offered a conditional loan of $700 million to the Rhyolite Ridge Lithium-Boron deposit in Esmeralda County.
Yeah, so far this week, Josh Meny has showed us the wider economic impact for Nevada and the nation, as well as the community footprint in central Nevada. He joins us now to discuss the environmental regulation obstacles that could hold up or possibly terminate the project. Josh?
Yeah, guys, with a project of this magnitude, there is a lengthy and robust regulatory process, and the cornerstone of environmental law is the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. It gives all Americans a powerful voice in shaping the federal government's decisions on projects that impact your health, well-being, and environment. Yesterday, we looked at community public input on how it will impact the local region. But today, we are looking closer at the environmental impact review process. And Rhyolite Ridge has had to make 3 revisions because it will destroy critical habitat for a plant, TM's buckwheat, which is listed on the endangered species list.
There are hundreds of plants just in this area alone.
Rhyolite Ridge is on the Silver Peak Range in Esmeralda County. It's the only known North American lithium-boron deposit that could literally supercharge the U.S. electric vehicle industry. It also happens to be the only habitat where an endangered species of plant, TM's buckwheat, exists. And that is a major regulatory snag for Australian mine developer Ioneer.
12 o'clock, here's a TM's buckwheat plant. On this White Hill is one of the 8 subpopulations of TM's buckwheat, and the mining activity will take place about a half-mile south.
Ioneer President Bernard Rowe insists that the mine and the endangered species can coexist. Rowe and Ioneer have been planning for the lithium-boron mine for about 7 years. But on December 16, 2022, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service listed TM's buckwheat as an endangered species because of how the proposed mine would destroy a significant portion of the plant's critical habitat, which could run it to extinction.
In the case of listing TM's buckwheat, they did the right thing. The Fish and Wildlife Service looked at the science and looked at the evidence and determined that this species is endangered, and kind of did it in the face of a lot of political pressure not to.
Despite U.S. Fish and Wildlife making the official endangered species determination, just 4 days later, the U.S. Bureau of Land Management issued an environmental impact statement for Rhyolite Ridge, signaling federal support for the project to move forward.
I think the main question for BLM is, why did they launch environmental review for this mine 4 days after TM's buckwheat was listed under the Endangered Species Act?
The Center for Biological Diversity Great Basin Director Patrick Donnelly charges that the Bureau of Land Management launched the environmental impact statement for the project in response to the Fish and Wildlife's endangered species status for TM's buckwheat. He says the reason is because the federal government is urgently pushing for lithium extraction to secure a stable domestic supply.
It certainly appears to be a publicity stunt. And the mine was not ready for prime time. It's almost a year and a half later. They still haven't released a draft environmental impact statement, and they're still revising the mine's plan. And so it seems like the mine wasn't ready, and they just launched the environmental review as a response to the ESA listing.
And then a few weeks later, on January 13th, 2023, the U.S. Department of Energy issued the $700 million conditional loan for Rhyolite Ridge, again signaling it to move forward.
We've done a huge amount of work, the baseline studies over a couple of years, and then working closely with the BLM and the Fish and Wildlife, as I said before, to work around solutions.
Working with the agencies, Ioneer has revised its plan and will now just be impacting 20% of the plant's critical habitat.
To tackle and solve the tough environmental and water and other types of issues that you do have to deal with when you're developing a project of this scale. It's part and parcel of what we do, and it doesn't always work. Sometimes we hit barriers that we can't find resolutions to, but in this case we're really proud that we sat down, we listened, we worked on solutions, we implemented those solutions, and the outcome was very positive.
The Center for Biological Diversity Great Basin Director Patrick Donnelly has put up a fight against the Rhyolite Ridge project, saying that it threatens the critically endangered TM's buckwheat. However, Donnelly says if the project should get approved, it threatens the integrity of the Endangered Species Act altogether.
We proposed an area of critical environmental concern extending 1 mile out from Teams buckwheat, and that nothing could disturb anything within that mile, and then we'd be willing to have a conversation. We have tried to meet them halfway and to say, look, if you want to put a mine here, there has to be a real protective buffer around these plants, and they've refused. So, 38%, 20%, it's all unacceptable because of the extreme rarity and sensitivity of this species.
Yeah, and Ioneer has reported that they have spent $2.5 million on conservation and reclamation efforts for the plant so far, which includes establishing a seed bank and greenhouse for growing it. That's in Minden. They also plan to spend $1 million per year on research, such as finding new habitats for the plant to grow. Covering the 2 News Nevada Investigates, Josh Meny, 2 News Nevada.